It's a fascinating and amazingly dynamic time. For the next 12 or 18 months, it will be as interesting as you could ever imagine. Good, bad or indifferent, it'll be exciting. Infrastructure will have to keep pace with developments. They have to go hand in hand. You can't have major developments without infrastructure to support that. It will just have to happen because it will be driven by the population increase. We know a whole raft of developments that are taking place now. We're party to and assisting some of those developers to get their developments up, and they're stunning. I mean, it's the like of which Annemiek's never seen. Opal's Australia's national gemstone. Best stuff in the world comes from here. What an opportunity. You'll have 6,000 plus well-heeled miners out at Kiltabacam, less than 15 kilometres away. Not much to spend their money on, wanting to take something home for the missus or the girlfriend. It'll either be somebody going to the expense of setting up a shop at Hiltaba if they can achieve that, or just setting up a bus service. Bring the punters back here. Bring them here, take them around all the shops. Everybody gets a bite of the cherry. The customer, at the end of the day, gets the best value for money.
I did. How are you? How was your trip? Oh, not too bad. A long trip today. We've left it. The community must be respected in their views, interests and aspirations. So if they have a particular desire to achieve something that they have determined themselves, we will support them in doing that. I think the analogy would be you can lead a horse to water but you can't make it drink. So we provide the frameworks for them to operate in, and then they choose to do it as they want, as opposed to forcing them to do something they may not want to do. We're very keen to see resilient communities look at diversification into multiple material outcomes. Tourism is probably and most likely to be the economic driver for this region well and truly after a mining activity has gone.
And we've got some really, really good cultural history here which we can sell, but we want something that's unique. There's a lot of bird watchers and people who go and do the walking trails and bits and pieces, but there's no one in the desert that has got a great big market garden. So that's where we'd like to go, and we want it to happen now so that we could have it up and running and market our town for the next tourism season, which is the middle of next year. We don't find out whether we get the grant until December. It's not the right time to start planting. We start planting around April, May. That's our tourism season. We really need things to move faster than 5 months. How can you grow really good crops in the desert? Is it cost effective? You know, how difficult it is to do it environmentally? And it's surprising actually how easy and how cost effectively you can do it. And we started off on a small scale, just in people's yards, trialling it. We got some polypipe, we've got the nutrients for the water. You put the seedlings in, and out of a metre long pipe with probably 10 to 12 plants in it, we would use 3 litres of water in a week. And it's a matter of picking the pipe up and putting it to wherever it gets the most sun or the least wind, or it's actually very, very easy to do. And there's some really, really good successful gardens around the place. Some are growing better than others, and we're having a look at why one lot is growing better than another, so that then we can try and replicate that down in the town centre there. So you're just making little micro gardens, and you end up with these great big lush products growing out the top of the tube. It's really, really, really good.
The government were happy for Annemiek to float along as Annemiek, with Annemiek making very limited demands on the government, and the government having very limited responsibility to put anything back. That's all changed quite rapidly, and it's particularly changed since Roxby Downs and Olympic Dam. It's meant that our population's grown, and we're now seen as an alternative residential location to Roxby Downs. This has meant that there's been a bigger demand for more modern facilities, and one of the most key modern facilities is having water piped to your house rather than having to ring up and have it delivered. The water is delivered by truck.
Yeah, I just sort of hook it in with a pole and drop it right in there, turn it on and stand around and wait. If I fill those 3 tanks up, it's 13 minutes I think it takes to fill them.
And the whole town is covered by you guys distributing the water?
The whole town, no one's got any other way apart from straight above.
I had the luxury of going and looking at the school and meeting with the school principal the other day, and it's an absolutely amazing model of new thinking of education from child, like baby, right through involving the community, involving the mothers. The library is probably more used than my library in my town. Part of being an Andamuka is that intelligence. I think there is that ethic that just sits there. What I like to see is that there is a mixture. I went to a barbecue and there is a generational mix, and that to me is how you start passing that intelligence on as well.
The innovation that a university could bring in is based on world experience, an academic process, and best practice. However, it comes uninhibited. So they say it without fear, favour or malice, whereas the government administration is within a set of rules. So it's very difficult to be innovative or opportunistic within a government framework. And if that is purveyed down to the local level, well, they're caught within a vacuum to a certain extent. The universities bring a seal release on that vacuum to bring in innovation, insight, worldliness, and so there's a real place for community, government and the tertiary or the education sector at a higher level to work within the communities. Historically, we as government operate within these regions. The trouble is that we bring in a fairly regimented and structured, usually legislative framework to apply to the communities and how we support them. Where universities fit in is they operate outside of the same set of rules that we operate within. They bring innovation without baggage.
Sometimes in rural communities, and especially remote communities, it's also important for the people in those communities to have connections to the external. So I would call that bridging social capital.
There are people in the university that are actually able to translate, for want of a better word, from the academic speak into the layman's terms. We do ask them on occasions when we want to put a document out to the community and it's been written at a level that is acceptable for the government or from an academic point of view, but when you want to relay that information to the community and actually communicate with the community so that they understand, it needs to be put in everyday terms.
The town itself in the last 8 years that I've been coming here has moved forward but retained a level of cultural identity. But it's clean, it's got trees growing, it's got care and attention to its amenities that you can actually feel, and I think that's really important. And it hasn't lost its identity, but it hasn't retained it unnecessarily. Does that make sense? It's sort of, it protects what's important in the essence, but it's not protecting everything in the world just because that's there. So I think it's a decision to what parts of the culture you move forward with. You know, I often hear things like, we don't want the Birdsville track bitumised. because that's the essence of the virtual track. But the reality is the people who are actually using these sort of amenities want it bitumised so they can actually get to the end point. So I think it's that balance.
Andermaker is a really fortunate town. You know, we've got a very low crime rate here. We've got good support network for the young kids.
Your kid walks down the street and does something that the community recognises as being not really acceptable. They all pick on the kid. So that child's probably got 50 mothers around the place because they're all looking out for everybody else's kid. And I think that's part of the beauty of the likes of Andermaker and other small communities. I mean, most other communities are probably in the same boat. And that's why it's good to bring kids up here. We've made it a more family-friendly town. We've done stuff to make it that way. And I think that's paying rich rewards now. I think that the sustainability of any small community revolves around the people that live there. And if they're happy, they'll stay. If they've got work, they'll stay. If they've got a reason to stay and an interest to stay, they'll stay. Otherwise, they'll all flock down to the city. And that's what previously happened in the past. In the older days when opal mining was the industry of Andermaker, when kids got older, they went to school in Adelaide and then they went and got jobs in Adelaide. And that left quite a large population of elderly people, older people, which we now have a rich group of involved in looking after the town. Now, that's part of the cultural diversity of the town, but we can't allow that to continue because when those people depart, there's nobody to take their place. So we've got to make the town more sustainable by retaining the local knowledge, the local talent, the local interest and the people that actually like living here. The community as it stands needs to embrace growth and change. We can't continue to rely on the BHPs of this world to be our saviour. The federal government take from Andermaker is something in the order of $8 to $9 million a year in income tax alone. It should be, for me, a no-brainer that some of that money should be earmarked to go back into the community, and that would help then build the infrastructure. It shouldn't be down to the state government to have to do all this stuff itself. The federal government takes some rich rewards out of Andermaker. I think that it's time that the federal government recognise that actually Andermaker is part of Australia. It does exist, even though it's a remote community, and it needs to be putting something back to ensure its long-term viability.